Okay, here we are in video 3 of my favorite knives. My favorite knife edge is the convex, if you hadn't noticed. All of my knives are convex but 2. And that's the Jack Lore, which is a full Scandi, 0 degree Scandi. And there's Scandi Vex, Tannenboca Puco over there, which I ground and finished out to Scandi Vex myself because I wanted it to be exactly how Goran had designed it. Yeah. Now this knife, which is, I painted the sheath. The sheath's really quite a nice color here. It's got greens and coyote browns and whatnot in there. Came out nice. Anyway, did not go any further than that. But it would be nice to put some poppers in here. You know, snaps. But the plans for this knife are still in the back of my head. But, you know, as I get to things, I got so many things to do. But this is a Ron Hood Anaconda. Okay. And done by Tops. Now, I had an earlier I had a knife, an Anaconda, which was a Tanto blade. Okay, this one is nice and sharp. It says a conventional saber grind blade, and it's convexed. I did not sharpen this one a whole lot. I just kind of finesse the edge just a little bit. This is a knife sharpening and maintaining system that I came up with years ago using belts. And it works awesome. You can take any knife you want and turn it into a convex knife with this system. Piece of paracord in a loop. Dowel. You'll see this all in my videos. You go down, you know, just go down there near the bottom there, and you'll see stuff on knives and knife sharpening system and all that. Anyway, this is a leather belt. Yeah. Anyway. Oh yeah. That is a nice edge on there, let me tell you. So, 1/4 inch thick Anaconda. Yeah. Ron Hood design. Slight downward curved blade, downward slanted blade. I and Mike had a lot of discussions about angles on knives. And he was one of the original owners of Tops. He had several friends that were involved in the early company. Anyway, I and he were friends, and we had a number of good discussions on knife angles and so forth. And it's funny because he said that he and Ron had quite a few conversations on that as well, because it really helps a knife to have a certain geometry to it for performance. Okay. I brought up blade geometry many moons ago on YouTube, and now everybody talks about blade geometry. But anyway, that's the Ron Hood Anaconda, made by Tops. Excellent knife. This knife is one of my first. Well, this was my first Tops knife. I got it because it looked right up my alley. I like things that are not typical. Anyway, I have a cord lock here. This is a Duraflex cord lock. Alright. And this is a Tops sheath. Okay, so this is just a very basic sheath. I've always wanted to make a really good leather sheath for this, but I never have time to do any leather work. Yeah, I did one leather sheath for one of my knives, and it's a lot of work. It took me days. I really wouldn't want to be in the leather sheath making industry, because you really don't get what the work you put into it, you know. It's a lot of work, and you have to compete with third world countries, you know, where the value of the dollar is worth much more than it is in our own country. But anyway, this is a Tops version of the Tracker T1, 1/4 inch thick, 1095 high carbon. Back in about I got this knife in about 2007 or 2009. I think it was 2007. I got it a long time ago. But it came with a very basic edge on it, and I didn't like the edge. I thought this knife needs to have a steeper grind, and it needs to be convexed. And back then is when I was getting into convex. And you're gonna laugh, but you know, many years ago when I was a youngster, I did not really understand convex knives. Convex knives have been around for hundreds of years. You know, I mean, the original katanas, you know, in Japan, those were all convex knives, or convex swords, excuse me. And then they had convex knives also. But yeah, this knife by Tops is a rendition of that knife by David Beck, and that knife was as a rendition is David Beck's version of the Tracker, which was first made by a guy named Ed. Anyway, there's a whole lot of controversy over that, but personally, I don't believe the story. That's for other people to discuss and debate, because I saw some original drawings, and anyway, I'm not going to get into all that. But this particular knife, I convexed and took the grind up on it. I got it about 90% complete the way I wanted it, right? I got it about 90% complete. It's a good knife, and I used it. I put the original Fury Road tread pattern here. I put the bow drill divot in it. I put the bow drill divot on this side, which is, I would rather have had it on this side, but these original T1 trackers have the Tops logo engraved into the handle scale here, which I like the heck out of that. I mean, it's too bad that they quit doing it, but everybody's trying to cut costs, I guess. But they are not cheap knives by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't think it had anything to do with cost. But you'll notice that this particular knife has a very nice finish to it. Okay, really nice. It's been blued. It was laser, done with the laser on the logo and on the side here. So it looks like it was hammer finished, but that was done by a laser, I believe. But anyway, the young fellow who was a firefighter, I remember he was a firefighter, he's a really nice kid, and he said, hey, he says, has anybody got a Tops T1 tracker that they want to sell? And I said, you know what, look kid, I'll give you one. I got two. So I had one sitting around that I wasn't using, and so I said, I'll give you one, So anyway, he says, look, I can't just take that from you for nothing. He says, I do finishes on knives and this and that. He says, you got another tracker? He says, I'll finish your knife out for you if you want, as a trade, right? So I said, oh, that's pretty cool. I said, what does it look like? And he showed me some of his other knives, and he had already done a tracker, a T1, for somebody else. And I said, man, I really like the looks of that, the way you did that tracker. I said, can you do mine up like that? He said, yes. And so I said, okay. I said, I'm going to send you both the knives. I said, this particular one is mine, and that other one is the one I'm giving you. I wanted my personal knife back because I had taught, trapping and survival stuff with it and things like that. And so I had some personal attachments to it. And he said, oh, no problem. And so that young fella, his name is Hunter. Hunter something. But he's up in the Dakotas. Hunter something. Yeah. Can't remember exactly. Anyway, I had the grind almost to where it is now. It was just about 2 millimeters shorter. And so I asked him, I said, hey, while you're doing that finish and everything, I said, and this is, I'm very, very picky about my knife sharpening. This shows you how much I trusted this kid. I told him, I said, if you have the time, because I had seen some knives he had sharpened, I said, if you have the time, can you go ahead and take that up about 2 millimeters from where it is right now? 1 or 2 millimeters. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's not a lot, but 1 to 2 millimeters changes that angle, changes the overall angle of the grind on each side when you do that. And he said, okay. He says, I may or may not do it, just depending on my time. And I was like, okay, whether you do it or not is fine. It's It's not an issue. But he did do it, and so he got me an extra couple of millimeters there on the grind, and he polished the bevels. And so yeah, it came out beautiful, and it's still nice and sharp, beautiful knife. I really love this knife. It's still one of my favorite knives. I used the crap out of this knife. I beat the living snot out of this knife, and it didn't do anything to it. One fella got hit in Afghanistan, I believe it was, by an IED, and the knife got blown up. But it did not incur a whole lot of damage. Luckily, the man is alive, but he had sent pictures of it, I believe, to Tops, and talked about it, and gave the whole story behind it. I believe they ended up giving him another knife. He lost the knife at first, I think, and they found some old woman batoning wood with it. So, you know, people cry about those people that baton wood, and I'm a big proponent of batoning. If your knife ain't worth a squat, then don't baton with it, you know. Alright, we're going to do another one. I still got a couple more knives to go here. See you there.